Pretty soon we have the FOMC meeting minutes, which is set to create a lot of volatility in markets. And for those of you guys who are trading currency pairs with USD in them, I'm going to try and give you guys a little bit of my thoughts going into the news, as well as some trade setups to think about for the rest of the week. Let's jump right in. Now, before we get too far into today's video, let me remind you guys that very soon the registration is ending for the competition or the World Series of Trading being put on by Bybit. In the link down below in the description, you'll have a whole list of awesome prizes. They're giving out about $8 million total, which is incredible, or it's 8 million USDT specifically. They have massive prize giveaways, and if you are looking for a new broker, check them out in the description. You'll have up to, actually it's 4,000. They told me that in a private letter to us. That's actually up to $4,000 in deposit bonuses available with their summer deposit blast off. So all of that information is down below in the description if you'd like to check it out. There's NFTs, prizes up for grabs, and just by joining you have some huge prizes that are available to you. Again, the link is down below in the description if you'd like to find out more information. Let's take a look at some of the things here for today's Fed meeting. So of course, this is happening at 2 p.m. US Eastern, and it has some rather strong implications on what could happen to the markets going forward. FOMC is basically where the Fed gets together, and you can see it's a detailed record of the FOMC's most recent meeting, providing in-depth insights into the economic and financial conditions that influence their vote on where to set interest rates. And as you can probably imagine, right now is a very interesting time in markets because the Fed is trying to hold off things from going into a recession, and it's looking increasingly likely that it very well could happen. So when we take a look at the US dollar, this is why we're seeing such an incredibly strong US dollar prior to the news. The expectations here being that the Fed is likely to remain very hawkish in their stance towards raising interest rates, tightening their monetary policy, and reducing their balance sheet. Again, this is all in anticipation of potential recessions and trying to combat inflation that is running rampant here in the US as it is in many other places. In fact, if we take a look at some of the other different currencies, we take a look at inflation, you can see that in Canada, you have 7.7%. If we were to take a look at something, for example, like the Euro USD, let's actually go look at what inflation is like in the Euro region. You can actually see that inflation is really high, not just in the US, but in other places as well, 8.6% in Europe as well as in the US. Inflation is a serious problem. It can really hurt consumers. And as you guys probably know, if you're sitting there and you're paying a lot more at the gas pumps and things are costing you, rent is going up, that ultimately hurts the economy and it hurts businesses, because what we've seen is the S&P 500 drop dramatically for the last several weeks. In fact, this has been, for those of you guys who are not paying attention to the stock market, it's actually been the worst 6-month period of a start of a year for the NASDAQ in something like several decades. This thing got absolutely smacked. And what we've been trading here for the shorter term has been a focus on actually going with the flow here. As much as I don't like shorting stocks, I'm not shorting stocks, but I am doing things like looking at shorting Aussie dollar, which is a position that I will be holding going into the news today. I actually took this thing short on stream here. I sold right there on the stream today on my channel, and ended up holding on to it until now. So we'll see if we can hold on to this trade. In fact, as we're sitting here, I'm actually going to go ahead and trail my stop loss to break even. I meant to do that just before the video, but we've now got the stop loss here to break even going into the news. I don't want to add any risk. So if this thing goes, breaks through the lows, we could just be continuing to see a very strong US dollar. And I guess that's kind of the narrative that I have going into the Federal Reserve meeting today as well. The dollar looks very strong, and until further notice, the path of least resistance for a chart like this is, in my opinion, to the upside. So for example, if we do actually see pullbacks on this thing, what were levels of resistance could actually act as strong levels of demand. Drawing in some levels here, you can see that on the 1-hour chart, in my personal opinion, if we do get a rejection, we get some pullback here prior to the news or even on the news, these zones could be opportunities to look for bullishness on the US dollar, especially against different currency crosses. One of the ones that people have been very interested in is things like dollar CAD, which saw an explosive move on the oil price coming down a little bit. And that's a big deal because With the oil price coming down, you would expect inflation concerns to possibly go down a little bit. But the dollar is so strong that despite this, the dollar has seen an incredible rise in all of this. So, I mean, the thing is, for me, it's like one of those things. If you see the dollar moving like this, it's very hard to jump in front of. If I'm jumping in front of this thing, I better be prepared, to take some L's along the way, because yes, we are sitting at resistance, but with such a hawkish Fed and such impulsive, strong green candles to the upside, it's very possible that we could actually see a break out of this range here today, which brings me to my thought process on dollar CAD. I wouldn't be looking to short this. In fact, I would actually be looking to buy at this level if we see a break and retest opportunity along the Federal Reserve meeting minutes. So if we see like a big break, if we see something that was said that's very, very hawkish, very strong for the US dollar, any sort of pullback on the USDCAD could actually be a bullish scenario here for me until further notice. In fact, let's see what the Edge Finder has to say in terms of the score chart summary. And then I want to show you guys something else. So USDCAD, kind of neutral, so nothing crazy. But from a price action standpoint, I do kind of like it. I want to show you guys this. Going into the Federal Reserve news today, what I find very intriguing is that if we look at the top long positions held by institutional traders, which we track with our market scanner here, the A1 Edge Finder, you can see that the strongest total COT positions right now, percentage-wise, are the US dollar and the oil market. Those are the top 5 long COT assets. In other words, it's what big players are the most heavily long on in terms of contracts on the futures market. Conversely, we have other things like CHF and GBP, which gives us a couple currency pairs that we could take a look at prior to the news. If we know that GBP is very weak from institutional players and so is CHF, then we could potentially cross those against things like the dollar and the oil market. So let's go take a look at some of that now. Let's look at GBPUSD for possible shorts. If we see, again, we know that we are more biased to the short side on the pound and more long bias on the dollar based on what institutional traders are doing. A pullback to these levels could actually be a great opportunity to sell. And I like 1.20 as a nice round number play, especially as it tags up into this 50% retracement. I think that there could be some nice opportunities to sell the pound against the US dollar on a retest here today. If we get some volatility on the news and we see some swing up to the upside there, that to me would be an opportunity potentially to look for some sell side action. Again, I'm already showing you guys the trade that I have opened. I took this trade live on screen today on my live stream, took a short on AUDUSD. Similar to what I was thinking, we'll see if we can get a break through these lows. That's ideally where we would see it go. If that can happen, especially on or around the news, I'd be happy to hold that position and try and trail stops further. Again, we just moved stops to break even, and I need to go ahead and make that alert as well. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and lock my stop loss to break even as we do that. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, and so I just updated the trade here so you can see what I just said. I just said I'm trailing stops to break even on my trade. We have FOMC in a few hours, so making sure to lock my trade in here after that nice drop on stream today. So we're in, not necessarily profit, but we've locked the trade at break even. So we can't lose from here. And now just a measure of can we actually break through, and we'll give it a little bit of room in case there's some volatility on the actual Fed meeting itself. So good little spot to be in with AUDUSD. Another one we mentioned was USDCHF, which is trending very nicely here to the upside. And in my personal opinion, again, we saw from the smart money tracker that the biggest the biggest sell was actually CHF and the biggest long is USD. So that points us towards a bullish dollar Swiss franc. So if we take a look at that again, any pullbacks here, to me, look more like buys. Now, I'm not going to stack a whole bunch of buys before the trade. I already have my AUDUSD position open. But if I'm looking at this during the actual release, and there gets to be a point where we see a nice little sell on USDCHF, there's 2 trade setups that I like, both on the long side here. You can probably pick them out from the crowd here. I like the 38.2% retracement, perhaps on a pullback to that point, or even the 61.8 should we see a retracement down to those levels. I'd be willing to pick up some dollar Swiss on the long side, going with the flow here. Nice momentum to the upside. And again, a nice little change in direction recently. We saw that 1 hour chart start to actually trend the other direction, and that's beautiful. So I like dollar Swiss for a long trade, and we'll watch out for that. One more pair, of course, we've got to talk about with reference to FOMC is gold. Gold is absolutely tanking here today. And if we look at the moving averages again, really technically sound downtrend for the time being. There is no buying here for me. There is no, justifying why I'm going to buy gold. Gold is just bearish right now until further notice. Maybe if you're longer term, maybe if you're, building positions or you have a longer term investment outlook, that's another story. But for me, as a, on the shorter term side of things, these 4 hour candles tell a big story to the downside. And until further notice, as we look at this, we say, okay, well, you've got resistance looking left, supply, right? You've got these levels where if price does even rally, I'd be more biased towards selling in the short term than buying. Because again, we're trending very well to the downside. And on top of that, with a Federal Reserve that is incredibly hawkish and inflation concerns kind of subsiding a little bit, they're expecting inflation to curb, which we'll see in an upcoming report from CPI. Overall, trying to buy gold right now is a bit tough. If we see some recession concerns kind of spike again, if things like unemployment start rising dramatically, perhaps we'll revisit that idea on a long on gold. But for now, the chart is not telling us that there's any entries. We need to see higher lows for gold buys. We need to see us be wrong on the sell side first. Right now, any attempt to rally has been met with lots of rejection and beautiful sell side opportunities. So for me, looking at this, until further notice, pullbacks would be more biased to the sell side than anything else. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button down below and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And hey, we'll see you back next time. Looks like it's time for your next trading video. Check out the videos here and here for more free trading content that should help you in your trading journey. We try and keep it real here, so make sure to subscribe for more content that is down to earth, realistic Forex trading content. See you in the next video.